Ladies and gentlemen, dear fellow countrymen from Nantes, and dear fellow countrymen from mainland France, overseas territories, and from abroad who are listening to me. In a few weeks, you are going to elect the President of our French Republic. Because the election of the President of the Republic is by means of direct universal suffrage, it represents the cornerstone of our institutions. The presidential function has been depreciated by the reduction of its term of office, degraded by the striking inefficiency of those who have fulfilled it, and lost the prestige that was once attached to a truly committed choice. We will do away with a 5-year term and replace it by a non-renewable 7-year term, which will clear the President of electoral concerns, reinstate legitimacy as well as prestige of office, and give him or her the freedom of mind and action in his and her decision-making. France no longer accepts the fake political alternations, what I call single-direction alternations, because both left and right eventually offer our country but one single option and have led us onto an uninterrupted slippery slope. Do not be fooled. Left, right, left, right. This is the beat to which globalization, immigration, and mercantilism want us to march. This is leading us to the abyss on a carpet of roses. From these difficult decades remains a sense of overall fatigue, despondency, and bitterness. I will tell you, my friends, it will be under the ashes of your disillusions that together we will find the sparks of the flame and of light. I want to turn your ever so legitimate anger into an act of love for this vital and unique community. Just like you belong to your family community, you belong to your national community. The places where, when you are living in despair, you find the reasons to believe, to undertake, and to succeed again. I want you to be able to have faith in our country and in the entity along which it is organized, the state. France was built around the state, with a capital S, the one whose very name evokes permanency, the state which became one with the nation over history, the state which represents the backbone of our nation. Some today would like to make both nation and state vanish into thin air. We defend both, because without the state, there would no longer be a nation. This is why we believe in the eminent role held by the head of state. Being the head of state implies ensuring the correct operating of its institutions and administrations. It therefore implies to watch over the separation of powers, to ensure that administrative logics abide by the democratic will. It also implies to be concerned about the welfare of devoted public servants, to listen to them and to support them. Being the head of state means representing the state with sobriety and style. It is about keeping in mind that the head of the state has to incarnate his or her position, that beyond his or her own person, he/she embodies a function that he/she has to be worthy of. And this is a useful reminder after these last 2 terms that he and she is accountable for his or her personal conduct, his or her words, the respect he/she owes to everyone, his or her ethics, and his or her devotion to the public good. There cannot be a strong state unless the head of state is himself or herself indifferent to the lure of money, to the pressure from the powerful, or to feudalism, amongst which financial feudalisms. Being head of state implies, at last, giving appropriate means to the civil servants. It implies encouraging the necessary adaptations and to begin with the essential and continuous modernization. On a daily basis, in all these areas, we can observe deficiencies, dramatic deficiency, irresponsible, and sometimes even criminal deficiency. Today, this is not an exaggeration, and civil servants so devoted to the public good are the first to observe it, to deplore it, and to worry about it. The state is in a bad state. And I will not even mention any further the deterioration of public services, the administrative desertification of our territories, the collapse of public investments, the stagnation of professional situation of our public servants. I will not mention the state of motorways that are still maintained by the state, the squandering of state properties like military barracks, hospitals, racecourses, or toll-paying motorways. The visual evidence of the collapse of the state is taking place just before our eyes, as parts of the edifice crumble, one after the other. French history comprises 15 centuries of struggle against feudalisms, against factions, against oligarchies. But we know that this power struggle between the state and feudalism never ends. As soon as the state weakens, and we see it in our suburbs, we find Islamic mafia with incessant provocations and militant communitarism. As soon as the state weakens, it is replaced by other entities whose only legitimacy rests on force. And they challenge the authority of the state. Islam, with its incessant provocations and militant communitarism, comes to challenge our values, our Republican pact, and our national unity. But also global finance, which works towards the triumph of individualism and the disappearance of state, because the latter stands in the way of total freedom to circulate, or rather immigrate, to trade, and even to traffic. The state has been broken up. It has been cut into pieces in favor of illegitimate authorities, factions, and oligarchs. Therefore, I will first give its prerogatives back to the state by giving its independence back to our nation. The state that we will restore will be a neutral state, and by extension will be an impartial state. That is the conditions for its credibility, its legitimacy, and its ability to act. Political neutrality will be guaranteed to all civil servants and will have as a counterpart the requirement of observing a strict and salutary professional discretion in the exercise of their offices. The state we want will be patriotic. The state can no longer, as it has done for decades, act against the nation and against the republic. A patriotic state is a strategic state. When we talk about a strategic state, some denounce a Soviet-like drift. But our model is French, the model of the great 17th century French minister Colbert, a state which acts on the economy, not to the detriment of freedom for entrepreneurs, but a state that acts to give new impetus in sectors considered as related to national interest. Finally, the state I want will be sovereign. That is to say, it will act as a priority in fields related to its sovereignty. This is the reason why we will recover the means of our sovereignty. We will take them back from Brussels. Monetary and economic sovereignty, which enables us to act directly in the service of our economy, in the service of our businesses, especially the small and medium-sized ones, without having to ask permission from anyone, which equips us in these times of globalization, like all sovereign countries have done, which allows us to adjust our economy by other means than a drop in wages or the destruction of our welfare state. Territorial sovereignty that gives us back control over our borders, and the collective freedom to decide who comes in or settles in our country, because we are in our own country. Legislative sovereignty, which gives back to every French citizen the right to decide for him or herself, either through her representatives in the French Parliament or by means of the direct consultation, that is, by referendum. Budget sovereignty, because we are not on a leash and we want to be free to decide on what we spend and how much. The state will thus be better able to take charge of its sovereign functions: taxation, security, justice, army, diplomacy. Taxation is the state's strong arm. Taxes are what citizens pay for a service. The best possible service must be given at the lowest possible price. This is why we will install a rigorous evaluation of public policies. Tax distribution must be fair. Our project is balanced. It introduces important fiscal justice, particularly in favor of families, working classes and middle classes, but also to small and very small businesses. Taxes are a way to manage the economy. We will use fiscal tools to dissuade outsourcing and to favor virtuous behavior, such as manufacturing and producing in France, research, investment, innovation and exports. Law and order, my dear friends, are the first duties of the states towards its citizens. The means of our police force, which have been reduced over the last years, particularly by the Fillon administration, must be brought back to a level to meet current needs. We will hire 15,000 policemen and gendarmes. A great plan for the renovation of police and gendarmerie stations will be programmed. We will rearm them by active support, morally, by legal protection, by the introduction of the presumption of self-defense, by clear orders from a hierarchy that is finally back in touch with the reality on the ground. We will hold talks together with all other security stakeholders, like municipal police forces, which have a determining and complementary role thanks to their understanding of ground realities, their permanent work and proximity and contact. Regarding elementary protective measures for our country, we are now fully aware of the myth of the so-called control of the EU's external borders. National borders will be re-established. The Customs Department will be given the necessary human and material means. And in order to be able to arrange for the return of illegal immigrants, the necessary agreements will be concluded with their countries of origin. Justice will have an increase of their means to enable them to bring a quick and efficient response. Magistrates and court clerks will be hired, but the schooling of magistrates will be reviewed because we can no longer accept the permissiveness as it currently prevails amongst juridical authorities. Our zero-tolerance policy will require prison spots to be made available. We will do this by applying 3 sets of measures. Agreements with the country of origin will make foreigners serve their sentences at home. Believe me, many spots will be freed up in this way. Secondly, existing buildings, such as former military barracks, will be converted to host non-dangerous delinquents. At last, the construction of 40,000 prison spots will be launched. Within 5 years, we will give ourselves the means to re-establish the rule of law. I want to make it clear that the rule of law is the opposite of a government by judges, which is undemocratic, oligarchic drift, modelled on the ancient regime parliaments, which prevented any reform and eventually led to the French Revolution. Justice is an authority, not a power of its own. Magistrates are here to enforce the law, not to invent it, not to go against the will of the people, not to substitute themselves to legislators. Confronted by terrorism, we will reconstitute the means of our intelligence services, which have shown their limits, as well as our interventional means. To face the threat of military kind, the military characteristics of the gendarmerie will be reaffirmed. Unlike what is happening today, being placed on the official terrorism-related files will have the following effects. Kept on file foreigners will be expelled from France. Kept on file individuals with dual nationality will be judged, stripped of their French nationality, and finally sent back to their country. Kept on file French nationals will be prosecuted for passing intelligence to the enemy and sentenced to prison combined with national unworthiness. This national unworthiness, which will deprive them of all their rights. They will be forbidden from taking advantage of the national welfare or to rent a truck without being formally allowed to do so. With regards to external security, we intend to sanctuarize the means dedicated to the army by adding to the Constitution the principle of spending 2% of GDP on defense, with an aim of 3% at the end of the 5-year term. The army must no longer be the adjusting variable of public policies. As a matter of fact, during the first years, the levels of their budgets may even be higher in order to make up for lost time. Our external interventions will solely be based on the defense of our interests. We will no longer engage in any new wars which are not our own. Our diplomacy and our cooperation with states committed to fight our terrorist enemies will be made coherent with the military goals that we set ourselves. Our international relations will be guided by two principles which I've developed in a conference last Thursday: independence and equilibrium. Independence because, as I told you, we no longer want French people to die defending interests which are not our own. The independence I claim for our own country is called non-interference with regards to other countries, meaning to acknowledge the legitimate right for every country to run itself. We will break free from moralistic diplomacy. We will withdraw from the integrated military command in NATO. Equilibrium, because France is awaited by the rest of the world for her temperance, her spirit of dialogue, her understanding of other people's special characteristics. In the eyes of the people all around the world, we are the voice of the voiceless, the voice of the oppressed nations. If France has to be great, it also has to be great for the others. In the changing world, which sees the recognition of people on the rise everywhere, we are best suited to talk to the world and to great powers. At present, it is our opponents who are trapped by their outdated world vision, who are the isolated ones. I tell the French, look at the world. It is changing right before our eyes. In this emerging new world, I am best suited to speak in the name of France and to have a chance of being understood and heard. I tell entrepreneurs who know that, faced with reality, there is no point in lying. Today, I am best able to defend you and accompany you abroad. As you can see, my dear friends, the project we stand for is strong. It is global. It embraces all the problems that we are faced with and to which we will respond with seriousness and method. We are going to get France back on track in 5 years, and for this purpose, we are going to start by getting the state back in order. It badly needs it. Our project is in tune with the world, with the new world that we are entering. It resonates with the great global movement, witnessing the awakening of people, the return of protective borders, and the return of national pride. But above all, my dear friends, it is based on quite a sad analysis. What characterizes our opponents is that they do not longer believe in France anymore. But we are intransigent optimists. We believe in France.
Nous croyons en la France.
We believe in her genius.
Nous croyons dans son génie.
We believe
Nous croyons
that only
que
France
seule
can
la
revive
France
France.
peut relever la France. Nous croyons
We
que les
believe that the
valeurs qui l'ont
values which
fondée,
founded her, that the nation which was forged alongside the state, are the guarantors of our greatness, of our prosperity, of the solidarity which unites all French. And we believe that we, the French people, like the bearing walls of a home, are the bearing walls of France. This beautiful message of love, this gesture of loyalty to what we are, combined with our faith in the future, I ask you to carry it with me. We have 2 months left. Victory is at the end of the road. Be strong, be determined. To sum up, be French. Let's go forward now. Long live the Republic. Long live France.